Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Byrne, Director Consultant with PMI. Thank you for joining me, Baz.
You're welcome. Nice to see you again, Sus.
Nice to see you too. We're going to talk about OEE today.
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, what would be great would be if you could just explain what OEE stands for and what that means at its highest level.
Right. Overall equipment effectiveness, OEE. It is a prime metric, a prime measure for organizations who have engaged or embarked on TPM programs. The definition of TPM is many and varied. However, irrespective of its extent, scale, breadth, depth, it's still going to be doing the same thing. It's still a measure of the overall equipment effectiveness of that system that is delivering value to the customer.
Am I right in saying is as an equipment-based effectiveness tool, it's sitting predominantly in manufacturing?
Yeah, it is sitting in manufacturing, and I've not experienced any application of it outside manufacturing as OEE. I have encountered it as an OPE, overall process effectiveness, but it's rarely seen and observed. I haven't seen OEE applied in a non-manufacturing, certainly to any extent where it was useful, although it is important that when we consider OEE, there are many non-manufacturing functions who have influence.
Okay.
So while the metric may not necessarily apply to non-manufacturing, the influence of functions can be quite significant.
So tell me about the measure.
Okay, OEE is essentially a summation of three aspects of the effectiveness of a process. And effectiveness, of course, is different from efficiency, and that effectiveness is measuring how well we meet customer requirements. So it's the ultimate acid test. There are three components to it: availability, productivity, and quality, APQ. And it's a function of all three. So we're looking at a composite. Now, OEE, as an overall overarching metric, is a summation of the activities typically within different strata, different strands of activity. So it could be within the maintenance function itself and their ability to deploy preventative maintenance programs, as much as it can be, our training function and their ability to deliver the right capability building in a process, as much as it could be our ability to source, design, commission new equipment when it first arrives in on site. So it's an amalgam of all of how good or otherwise we are at that optimal approach, to delivering manufacturing excellence. So whilst it's a relatively straightforward calculation in that sense, it is critical in order for us to identify at a high level how effective we are at delivering the customer requirements. But also, as important is our ability to use the data generated in order to identify abnormalities where the process isn't optimal, whilst we continually strive for excellence across everything that we do. In itself, it's a measure of the proportion of time an asset, a piece of equipment, is producing quality product at the rate in which we require it. That is it in a single statement. That's what I would hang on to.
Yes, and as with many things, once you've got that measure, the big question is, so what do I do with that now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And you and I have spoken about loss cost and loss modelling in the past. And of course, it is having a really good understanding of how the work works and the metrics that best inform you about the health of the processes. Because if we have those metrics in place and we can see variance, we can see abnormality, we can detect something has gone wrong, we can do something about it, either in the short term to get us back on track or in the longer term for our continuous improvement activities. So OEE, therefore, classically has what are called 6 big losses associated with them. In order for us to, I suppose, enable those who are new to TPM and OEE to focus in on classically what would be the 6 big losses associated with operating a typical manufacturing environment. And those 6 sit neatly within the availability. How much time do I actually have available for the equipment? When I have that equipment for that time, how productive is it? And when it is productive, is it delivering quality product? So therefore, we're looking at that as a staged approach. So it's a great starting point. But for a holistic, systemic approach to improvement, clearly we would need to know more than just those 6 big losses. But it's a great place to start.
And if you were going to start with this, I mean, how, from your background and how you've used this sort of approach previously, is this something that we're doing daily, weekly, monthly? I've got no sense of how often one would be doing that analysis.
Okay, that's a great question. So, the consultant's response would be it depends. But I think certainly in my experience is recognizing that the responsibility for data generation is often with the operators of the process themselves. So my personal experience will be that I would be engaging, involving and working with the people who do the doing. And as a consequence of that, we typically would identify what do we need to know about, how does this process work? What are the key things we need to know about this process? Because often we've got lots of clues. For example, we may have, a customer complaints or customer claims that are directing our attention towards a specific part of the process. The label is displaced. The bottle top is not sealing properly, and so on. So it sort of gives you some elements, some clues. Some other sources of data that I use would be health and safety statistics. So typically, where do we experience musculoskeletal issues, striking and so on, cuts? And there are many, many sources, but actually, you get quite astute at being able to identify typically, of all of the things that we could know, what are the important things now that are going to shape our thinking, our theories, PDSA at play, and then begin a data collection process as simple as possible, as lacking of complexity as possible. And often, there'll be gated approaches. How many times did this break down in the last hour? And recording information that is relevant and appropriate. So consequently, it could be the minute, hour, day, month, week, and so on and so forth. I would suggest that in manufacturing, my experience is the data turnover is high to very high. So we are looking at minute and hour, which therefore means, for me, and using a medical sort of cliche, having our finger on the pulse. Because I have this principle, Suze, that if we're able to detect abnormality, it's an enabler for improvement. Problems give us the opportunity for improvement, as a consequence of that. So that's always my initial approach in practical terms. But I cannot overemphasize enough that this is, because it's systemic in nature, the first thing that needs to be clear about is we're not measuring operator productivity here. This is not about operators not doing or maintenance not doing what they should be doing. This is about the entire system that exists in order to deliver the customer value. So therefore, senior exec support, and I don't mean support in that, knock on my door if you need me. I mean tangible advocacy of why we should be doing this. Because in terms of the metrics and the data generation, we associate this with lost cost. And as we've described before, if we have an indication of the hours in which we are not productive, and I mean the business, it can be eye-watering, particularly in terms of when you translate that to cost. So whilst we might have assets available and the resource available for 168 hours, when we look at the output, we recognize that we've probably made use of 80, 90 of those hours. If we are lucky, because we often see OEE numbers in the region of 30%, 35%. And, even that should really send alarm signals in terms of the opportunity. And I like to see the positivity here, the opportunity, all of that opportunity to go. So it needs senior exec advocacy. There's no question that's the case.
So if somebody is new to this and they think, actually, this could be really eye-opening as to what really is going on, and therefore not only what really is going on, but also therefore so give me some clues on where to start.
Yeah.
Your best suggestion is obviously, assuming you've got the support and the advocacy, as you say, from the leaders, it's to start looking almost at some of those high-level data that might be giving you some signals. Like you mentioned, health and safety. You might be looking at downtime. Some other things that are just typically happening, and then start to gather that together.
Sure. I'll give you an example, Sis. And many, many times, one of the oft overlooked irritants within manufacturing systems can be often, the need to reset. A 1 or 2 minutes breakdown, stop, and then restart and restop. And so on and so forth, which actually cumulatively can be significant, but of course they're often not seen because they're not recorded. And and without overplaying this, I see circuit breakers being reset, software being rebooted, and that's just how it is around here. So there's a lot of information that's there that's masking some underlying issue, and it always strikes me as being curious that when we consider sometimes some of our more social activities, for example, cleaning a car. Cleaning a car to me is a wonderful approach to maintenance and preventative maintenance. Yes. And we have conditioning monitoring in our cars. We know that wear on the tires. We have maintenance strategies that run to fail. I can't fix a ball because I can't get at it. Therefore, I let it run to fail. We do preventative maintenance, checking oil levels, and we obviously. So a lot of the principles and approaches that are used within the TPM world, of which OEE is a subset of, naturally guide us towards there. It's just unfortunately that it tends to just become how it is here. We have to put up with multiple stoppages, poor product quality, rework, or perhaps delays because the supplier hasn't delivered to us, and so on. So always, and I suppose the biggest point I'm making here for those who are embarking on this is really to ensure that we see it as a systemic approach. It's everyone, because we all have a part to play, and consequently, when our data collection process is sufficiently robust, it means that the losses incurred in terms of not being able to deliver to the customer as expected or to schedule, we can have a much more comprehensive improvement program around the process and the system rather than just in operations and maintenance.
Brilliant. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much, Barry. That was really helpful. That really clarified that for me.
You're welcome, Sue. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.